What would you say, Gustavo, are the key qualities required to be a success within human resources?
Well, the function continues to evolve. Today, more data, more metrics are becoming part of HR. But the core of HR remains about how to maximize and deploy people. And the reality is that the hardest part of HR is that it is easy to implement systems and processes. It is hard to manage those systems and processes when you have people executing those or following those, because people are different and they have different needs, different perceptions. And as a human resources professional, I would say that whomever wants to be in HR, but to me, this is anyone that wants to be an effective manager, but more importantly, a leader, you have to understand human behavior.
Welcome to Jane Jackson Careers, a podcast that takes your career to the next level. Here's your host, Jane Jackson, author of Amazon Careers bestseller, Navigating Career Crossroads.
Welcome back to my Careers podcast, where I interview fascinating professionals who've made amazing career changes and are leaders in their field. Now, today I'm very fortunate to have, all the way from Virginia in the United States, Gustavo Serbia, who is the Corporate Director of Human Resources for the Crescent Hotels and Resorts Group. And he has worked in human resources for over 15 years in the US, in Europe, and in Hong Kong, within the luxury segment, with union and non-union workforces, corporate level, and with a startup too. He has extensive experience in the hospitality, airline, entertainment, and education sector at university level. And recently he's done a very, very interesting venture. He's launched the website called stretchthestring.com, which is a website dedicated to career coaching as well as job search and workplace advice. The goal of Stretch the String is to help individuals achieve their career and life goals, stressing the importance of continuous self-directed learning, self-motivation, and self-direction, pushing people beyond their self-imposed limits to become CEOs of their careers. Now, as you know, I'm all about careers, so when I read this, I thought I must get Gustavo on the show. Now, he holds a Bachelor in Fine Arts from the New York University and a Master's degree in Human Resource Management from Keller Graduate School of Management, and also diplomas in Business, Frontline Management, Training and Assessment Systems from the Royal Melbourne Institute of Technology in Melbourne in Australia. So a very well-traveled gentleman, and welcome to the show, Gustavo.
Thank you very much for the invitation, and I am very excited about joining you.
Yes, well, I read one of your articles on LinkedIn, and it was all about careers and career management, and obviously I was very interested in it, so it prompted me to make contact with you. And isn't LinkedIn a great way to meet fellow professionals?
Oh, let me tell you, not only LinkedIn, but the whole social network communication environment that we are going through today is just the fact that you and I are able to have this conversation. It's just amazing.
Yes, that's right. And especially being a human resources professional, I'm sure you are a strong advocate of LinkedIn as well. And so, Gustavo, to kick us off today, can you tell us a little bit about what your early career aspirations were?
It all started in Puerto Rico. I was born and raised in Puerto Rico. And earlier on, I wanted to be a baseball player. I grew up playing all kinds of sports, but the sport that I really was passionate about, that I saw my brothers playing, was baseball. But all of that changed when I have a brother who got involved in the entertainment industry as a singer and later as an actor. And when I discovered the industry, what I wanted to become was an actor. So I pushed aside the sports, obviously discovered girls at the same time, which wasn't helpful, and decided that I wanted to pursue an acting career. And when I graduated from high school, actually in high school, I started getting involved in doing commercials in Puerto Rico and produced the talent show for the high school on my junior and senior years. and then graduated from high school. And all I wanted to know is, how do I become an actor? So I actually moved to the States, going to Tallahassee, Florida for 1 year, and then moving full-time to New York to actually study theater.
What an interesting start. And so what happened to the acting career? Because I only know about your HR career.
So I pursued it for about 10 years. I actually got into HR around the age of 28, but since college, I participated in a few plays. So I did theater, I did some Spanish TV, I did voiceovers. I actually did the show South Park. I did the voices in Spanish.
Did you?
So,
how interesting.
Yeah. So I enjoy the whole idea of mixing a little bit of music with a little bit of acting, with a little bit of theater. But clearly, the career of an actor is not only demanding, but it's a struggle. It's very difficult to make it. And I continued the process. I produced my own music, tried to make it as a singer. Actually went to recording companies, introduced to them my music, and obviously nobody decided to buy it. And I decided, okay, what am I going to do? At the time, I was dating my current wife, and things started to change. And I realized that I wanted to be able to provide a better lifestyle for myself and for my wife, and decided, hey, what do I do? And at the time, I was working with American Airlines as a security agent, basically in the international operation, welcoming passengers from different parts of the world. And as I was there, I decided, okay, I need to look for something a little bit more steady. So I became a supervisor with them. And at the time, my sister-in-law was working with Mandarin Oriental Hotel Group, which had opened the Mandarin Oriental Miami a few months before. She told me they were having a career fair. I attended the career fair, looked at a board with all the openings they had, and they had a training coordinator position. And while I had not done any training, I had done some on-the-job training. So I was a person that when a new employee would come in, they would say, hey, Gustavo, can you train this individual? And I would say, sure. So I used that as leverage during the interview process. But hospitality is a little bit unique because, particularly at entry level, your experience is not as important as your personality and your attitude and your how well you come across as somebody friendly. So ultimately, I was offered the job, and I took it from there, and eventually decided I think I found my niche. I realized that working with guests, working with clients was not necessarily what I really enjoyed. That what I enjoyed was working with employees to help them be better at dealing with customers.
What a fascinating beginning. I hadn't realized this. When we were having a chat before we started this interview, I was focusing all on HR and stretch the string and learning and development. But now there's this whole other side of you, Gustavo. Baseball,
That's right.
Actor, singer, security agent. I mean, absolutely amazing. How did you find making those transitions? Did you ever feel like, oh, I'm not sure I can do it at all? Or did you always have a lot of self-confidence, maybe because of the acting?
I've always had a lot of confidence combined with a lot of insecurities. It's an interesting combination because it's that initial step of, can I do this, that I always struggle with. But once I take the step, the confidence kicks in, and I believe that I can conquer the world. But it's that initial step. You know, it was at the time, for example, going to an audition. I would be told there's an audition, and I will make any excuse in my mind not to go to the audition. But once I was there, I said, look, you're here already, figure it out. You got to make it happen. And then at that moment, it was like all the confidence in the world would kick in for me to actually do it. So I didn't find it hard, but yes, there was a struggle because although I'm comfortable with change, that initial step was not necessarily something that I was comfortable with. Obviously, as I've grown older and become more comfortable in my own skin and who I am, I realize that change is part of the equation. I always use as an example, it's something minor, but a few years back, I'm a lefty. And every time that I put my belt starting on the right side. And one day, a few years back, I decided to start doing it from the left side. And it was simply to remind myself that change is coming. You can't stop it. The quicker you can adapt to it, the better off you're going to be in the long run. So that has been my philosophy pretty much once I left acting and the entertainment industry. And I also told myself that the things that I did not do more diligently when I was pursuing the acting career, I was going to do with my HR career.
Actually, I really like that analogy that you use with the belt buckle, because it's like, we're creatures of habit, and we're so used to doing things a certain way that then we start to think that's the only way or that's the right way. But just by doing that small little thing, it was a constant reminder of, no, I can change my habits, I can adapt, and it's actually okay to embrace change as well.
Absolutely.
So now, Gustavo, you've had such an interesting career path, because when you joined Mandarin Oriental Group, you were in Miami, and then you were sent over to New York. And so you had a really interesting. It started as a training career, then you became learning and development manager, and then corporate director of learning and development. That must have been really interesting. How did you find moving from Florida over to New York?
Since I had lived in New York already when I went to school there, the transition process was pretty easy from the standpoint of I knew the city. Yes, this time around I was coming with my wife and a young baby, my first daughter. But from an environment standpoint, I was pretty comfortable. But what I needed to adapt to was the new employees that I was working with. I had a new boss who had a different approach from my prior boss. I had a new general manager that had a 180 approach from the previous general manager of the Mandarin Oriental Miami. So understanding those individuals, their personalities, the way they handle with circumstances is where I spend most of the time, because everything else to me was something that I felt comfortable with. I know the city, I know the subway, I know where to find things, so I don't have to worry too much about that. Let me focus on the environment that I'm working in and understanding the people around me.
And you had such a solid progression within the L&D space before you moved on to the Starwood Hotels as Assistant Director of Human Resources, and then Director of Human Resources and Regional Director. So you've had such a solid career path within HR. What would you say, Gustavo, are the key qualities required to be a success within human resources?
Well, the function continues to evolve, right? Today, more data, more metrics are becoming part of HR. But the core of HR remains about how to maximize and deploy people. And the reality is that the hardest part of HR is that it is easy to implement systems and processes. It is hard to manage those systems and processes when you have people executing those or following those, because people are different and they have different needs, different perceptions. And as a human resources professional, I would say that whomever wants to be in HR, but to me, this is anyone that wants to be an effective manager, but more importantly, a leader, you have to understand human behavior. I'm not a psychologist. I don't have a background in psychology, but this is where my acting background has become extremely beneficial, because I spend years training as an actor on how to understand my partner. What are the intentions of my partner? What is it that he is saying and why? And I didn't realize at the time when I transitioned to learning and development and HR that it was going to be so beneficial. And I started realizing that all of a sudden I'm able to adapt very quickly to the dynamics that I see around me. And it was because I spent years focusing on understanding other people while at the same time understanding myself. Because as an actor, you spend a lot of hours, talking about yourself and getting to know your weaknesses, your strengths, how your body moves. But at the time, you don't think about it. At the time, I'm thinking, I want to be an actor. I just want to do a play, win an Oscar. Who cares about all this other stuff? And it wasn't until later in my career that I realized that as an HR professional, being able to pay attention to human behavior and how people react to circumstances, I think gives me an advantage. So I recommend to anyone, if they can take an acting career, an acting class, where they spend time teaching themselves and paying attention to what others are doing and why, understanding the character's intention, then you translate that and you replace the character for your boss, right, your superior, and you say, why is he doing this? And it's not about manipulating, it's about understanding that people have different approaches. So to me, as an HR professional, at the core of it, you have to understand people so that then you can propose ideas based on the environment that you are surrounded. And if you want to move them in a different direction, it would be much more effective and efficient if you understand who you're surrounded by and why is it that they're doing certain things or feeling certain things so that you can adapt.
That's such valuable advice. What you're telling us really is to listen and observe and understand the motivations of others, which is something that you would have just learnt so well going through your acting career as well. And with HR professionals and most organizations, whenever they're doing selection recruitment, so often they like to use various psychometric assessments such as MBTI or Hogan or LSI or lots of different assessments. And I think they've got their place, but there is nothing more important, would you agree, Gustavo, than observing human behavior and communicating effectively and really listening to the other person.
Absolutely. And part of the challenge in the selection process is that rarely companies have time, and we try to make the process much more efficient by using assessments that many times companies are not even appropriately using as an additional tool, and they may be using it as a make or break, either you pass it or not. At the time, I remember Mandarin Oriental had such tool, and after I think about 2 years, they removed it because they realized that while the assessment was had been validated, good people that had great people skills were not passing the assessment. And hospitality is about people. I can teach you how to use a computer. I can teach you how to make a bed. I cannot teach you how to be nice to people. That either comes with your upbringing and the package that is your whole you, or you don't. Yes, if you're in your early teens, I can probably still mold you. But once you're an adult, if you don't like people, if you are not a friendly person, it's very hard for you to make an adjustment unless you make a real commitment or you go through a life-changing event that, completely changed your perspective.
You've got such a solid understanding of human behavior. I can see why you were adjunct professor at the George Mason University, teaching human resources as part of their undergrad program. And now currently you're also adjunct professor at Virginia Tech, teaching HR as part of the business school MBA program. That must be really interesting and rewarding.
Oh, I love it. It keeps me in check because I need to know what I'm talking about. But talk about change. The class that I teach is 9 students. 8 of them are born and raised outside of the United States. first time that they come into the U.S. Only one of them is born and raised in the U.S. So talk about adapting to change, understanding human behavior. I have to realize these individuals have not been exposed to how HR is done in the United States. So my focus has to shift. Versus when I was in the undergraduate class, I had 35 students, 30 of them were from the US and maybe 5 of them, had come here perhaps in high school. So they had obviously lived internationally. So having traveled to all of these places and now teaching to a group of students that are not familiar with the culture of the United States, I have to adapt. And I have to understand what their motivations are, their intentions are. And while they have to still meet a certain level academic standard, I want to make sure that they walk away with an experience beyond the HR part. I think that's, if anything, the easiest part. It's about how do I connect with these individuals without lowering the standards, without, placating to them. I'm enjoying it. I look forward every Monday when I go to class. Obviously, I bring guest speakers, friends that I have that have been in the industry for a while. And it's fascinating to see these individuals trying to absorb all this information that is being presented to them in hope of ultimately achieving their goals and dreams.
Oh, this is music to my ears as a career coach and a career professional. Just your enthusiasm for helping these people to really absorb the right information and to help them to craft careers themselves leads us very nicely, actually, into your new venture, which you set up, I believe, in September 2016, called Stretch the String. Now, it's all about career development and growth, and it sounds amazing. Can you talk us through what is Stretch the String and why did you decide to create this amazing venture?
So let me start describing the name Stretch the String, because people have asked me, because obviously, it doesn't say Gustavo the coach or anything that has to do with career development. But when I was thinking about a name, I reached out to one of my brothers and I asked him, hey, I'm looking for a name for this website and I don't want it to be Gustavo Serbia. Do you have any suggestions? And he says, Stretch the String. And I said, what? What are you talking about? And then he explained, Stretch the String. You got to fine tune it when you're playing a guitar to play the right note. And to me, it was a perfect name to accomplish at least the message that I'm trying to convey to people, which is, one, you got to stretch yourself. You got to go beyond your comfort zone if you want to take a higher role, perhaps make an industry change. And fine-tuning, because just like a string instrument, you have to play around with the tuning to make sure that you're playing the right note. So I decided that what I wanted was to share my knowledge with whomever wanted it. So I started writing with the objective of helping people. And I'm not charging. This is not a business yet. This is more of a passion that I've had of helping others achieve their goals and dreams, in particular, because when I made a change from my acting career, for a period of time, I felt that I failed because I did not achieve, my high school dream of winning an Oscar and becoming a big star. And the reality is that most people have to pivot and take a different direction. And I was hearing it all around me. Plus, teaching in college, I realized that a lot of the students were coming out with a lot of knowledge about theory, but not strong abilities to interact with others, interpersonal skills. And I thought, I need to convey this message. So that I decided to put together Stretch the String. And right now, all I'm doing is writing and responding to emails of people that contact me. I have a lady that reached out to me, 64 years old, black, and she believes that her age and her race are impeding her from finding a job. So I find fascinating being able to get with her. We've exchanged a couple of emails and helping her to see other things that perhaps she's not seeing. So we talked about her resume and her resume not presenting her well. So we're tweaking now her resume. I'm trying to help her now get an interview with a colleague of mine, no strings attached. But if she is not selected, I want to get the feedback so that I can sit down with her, because a lot of employers don't like to give feedback to candidates because they're afraid of being sued because of discrimination or any other reason. So I've always said that I want to work in the truth department, because there's people that are afraid of listening the truth. So I want to be that individual that says, look, I get it. There might be people that discriminate out there, but you can't control that. What you can control is how you present yourself. So let's focus on that.
You know what's so interesting is I'm an ex-recruiter as well, and we weren't permitted to provide in-depth feedback to candidates if they, asked, why didn't I get the role? Because so often you get lots and lots of fully qualified candidates, but obviously you have to choose only one. And so usually you give a generic bit of feedback. As I'm actually a coach and a trained coach, I love to provide feedback to people, because if they didn't quite get that role, if you're able to understand yourself a little bit better, what your strengths are, what your weaknesses are, how you communicate, it's going to benefit that other person when they're going for the next role as well. So you providing this feedback, especially to this one woman, as to, why didn't she get the role, or what she could have done better next time so she interviews more strongly, is such a valuable bit of support that you can provide to people. I think Stretch the String is going to be something that should grow very, very fast, because you're doing such great work for so many people. And having a look at Stretch the String on your website, I noticed that you provide blog posts and information in English and in Spanish, because obviously coming from Puerto Rico, you're fully bilingual, yes?
Yes, and I started in English. I've lived now more in the U.S. than in Puerto Rico. So I think in English, but because I have the ability to also write in Spanish, now I began to translate the posts. Now I'm going to be launching the page in Spanish, and I'm in discussions with some publishers just to write articles in Spanish. So anything that I can do to get the voice out there, that people need to realize that change is coming and you need to stretch beyond that comfort zone to achieve what you want. Because ultimately, if you don't want to achieve, if you are happy being a 9-to-5, you're satisfied, then I'm not for you. I am for the individual that says, Gustavo, I want to become a director. Here's the challenge that I'm seeing. I'm willing to move to another state, or I'm willing to move to another country, or I'm willing to change industries. How do I go about it? Well, let's talk, because I don't have all the answers, but I will look for ways to spark enough curiosity in you to go and seek it, because ultimately that's where I think is the bottom line. You have to be willing to put in the work, do it yourself, and not be dependent on others doing it for you, which sometimes holds people back.
Gustavo, you are an inspiration. I believe you must write the book Stretch the String. Okay, because I want to read the book Stretch the String, so I hope that this is going to be a challenge to you, because I
absolutely
think, because the work that you're doing, and you're doing it out of love. This is your passion project, isn't it? And certainly, if you write the book Stretch the String, I will promote it everywhere.
Well, I will certainly have to give you thanks on the book, and maybe you actually will write the preface.
It would be an honor. Now, Gustavo, I could talk to you all day. You are such an interesting man. Plus, you've got such a lovely accent and a beautiful voice. So I'm sure everyone at Virginia Tech who attends your lectures are very, very lucky, and they'd be hanging off every word. But I'd like to say thank you so much, Gustavo, for coming on the show. This is going to be absolutely wonderful. And I hope that you'll come back again when you publish your book.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Well, that's a lot of pressure, but I'll make it happen.
Yes, perfect. Thank you so much, Gustavo.
Thank you very much, Jane.
Okay, bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Today's podcast is brought to you by Audible.com. You can get a free audiobook download and free 30-day trial at audibletrial.com/Jane Jackson Careers. There are over 180,000 book titles to choose, so give it a go and get your free audiobook today from audibletrial.com/Jane Jackson Careers.
You've been listening to Jane Jackson Careers. Sign up to receive regular career advice at janejacksoncoach.com.